Danica, a lot of laps turned for you here over the last day or so in getting prepared for the nationwide race and obviously your Sprint Cup race here. So talk about how things have gone for you so far here at Kansas.
Yeah, well, we started practice a little late on, what was that, Wednesday, I guess. But we got some good laps, about an hour and a half in at the end of the day, which was nice. And then getting out on Thursday, I struggled in the Cup car. I didn't really feel very comfortable. So after I'm done with this, I'll be going over to figure out how I can feel more comfortable or what I'm doing wrong, because I'm sure that there's a lot for me to learn. And I think in the nationwide car, we were pretty good, actually. Felt like we had good speed. I actually expected to come and be relatively good on speed. I feel like junior motorsports cars are very fast, and they do well at big tracks, fast tracks. And, especially from Michigan and how well we ran at Michigan, I think that we can take what we learned there and apply that really well here this weekend, being a newly paved track like Michigan was. But honestly, I was thinking that I always tend to go pretty fast in the TISO car when I drive it. It's kind of weird. Each time it's always seems to be a good weekend for me, so hopefully that keeps going.
All right. We have questions for Danica. We've got wireless mics on either side. Why don't you raise your hand? We'll bring it to you. We'll start with Jenna, and then we'll head over to Randy, and we'll go to Bob.
Jenna Fryer, AP. Danica, it's 4 to go, I guess, in the Nationwide Series. As you look back over this season, how do you feel about how it's gone? I know, especially on the road courses, you had some good runs, maybe some wins taken from you. As a whole, as an entire season, are you disappointed with where your results are at, or is it how you thought that maybe it would go?
I feel like we've been overall much faster than what our results have showed, and performed better in the race than what our results have showed. We definitely had a pretty long stretch of bad luck through the summer, and I feel like that was maybe where we had the most speed. Everything from Elkhart to Daytona to Iowa. I mean, there were a bunch of races that things happened that were not completely out of my control, but definitely not always in my control fully. So I feel like, with that in mind, it's been an okay season. I think that we recognize as a team that we need to find speed, and that's why you've seen the changes happen in the team that have happened. We all want to get faster. We all want to be more competitive, and I feel like we've been inching a little bit closer here at the end of the year, and hopefully we can, I don't know if we'll get all the way by the end of the season, but making progress is key. And for me, ultimately, because I'm moving on, it's about learning and understanding cars, understanding changes, just getting a better grasp for all the elements of the weekend. So ultimately, I am disappointed with the results. I wish they were better. I wish there was better things on the record books, but I would imagine a lot of drivers can say that at the end of a year.
Yeah, Danica, Randy Kovitz, Kansas City Star. Is this a good weekend to double dip when you have a new track? I mean, those who are doing nationwide and Sprint Cup on a weekend when you do have a new track, a new surface, is this better than normal places?
Well, I think that, I don't know if you were asking about other drivers or not, but for me, the reason why this was picked was because there was this much more track time to do a Cup race, to get more comfortable. And so, yeah, it is a good choice.
Any of the drivers who do nationwide and Cup this weekend, is it advantageous than usual? Than is this where it's at?
I don't know. It depends on what everyone's motives are. I don't know why they drive the car necessarily. Do they do it for sponsorship? Do they do it for their team? Do they do it for track time? Why do they do it? And that's the question that needs an answer to decide whether or not it's the good weekend for it. Because if they just do it for track time, you're already getting a lot of it. So that's probably different between driver to driver.
Bob Hocker, Sporting News. With all the talk about the GoDaddy sponsorship and the Super Bowl commercials this week, does that stuff bother you? Does it impact your focus, or is that just kind of life in the whirlwind of Danica Patrick?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's more work for the general Danica Racing team than anything, as they are, working on my behalf to make sure that everything's going the way it should. But this is just how it goes, and it's really not a problem. I know they were saying sorry for the drama, but I just drive the car.
Danica, Matt Stewart, Fox 4 in Kansas City. With this new track, when you consider Dale crashing back in August, Denny crashing yesterday, are there any concerns on your end as far as running around it on Sunday? And what are your thoughts? What are your impressions of the new track?
Anytime you have a really wide track, I feel like the accidents can be bigger because you have further to go. When you're running a narrow track and you bump the wall coming out of the corner, or you lose it in the middle, you don't travel very far, and your trajectory is a lot less T-boning the wall. So I think accidents can be pretty big at a place like this, where it's not only is it fast from the repave, fast because it's 1.5 miles, but because it's wide. So I remember my dad telling me that at Indy about, it's a fast track, sure, but you're running along the wall a lot of the time, and the accidents can be big, but at least you're clipping it as opposed to having so far to travel. So and I think that new tracks are always a little bit, they need to come in, they need to grip up, you need to lay the rubber down, and it's not, the grip level outside of that is not the same. It's very different as opposed to tracks that have been seasoned. So when you get offline, it's going to be really tricky and dodgy for sure. And I think that the tire here is hard, and it doesn't feel like it has a ton of grip. So, there's a lot of track time, so hopefully that helps. But I think it's going to be really tough to pass. I could see that in practice. I wasn't, the times that, at least in the Cup car, I'm not that fast at all, and, people could come up behind me, and I would just let them go because it's hard to pass, and, you take the air away from them because you're all running the same line, so, I don't know, could make it a little interesting in the race if there's not two grooves.
Okay, we'll go to Claire, Lewis, Mike, Holly, and end up with a follow-up from Jenna.
Claire Beelang, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. Danica, you're just sort of getting into the Cup Series as you move in full time, and there's a lot of drivers in Sprint Cup that have never done a Super Bowl ad. So being in an ad or not, what is the expectation from the sponsor as far as racing? Certainly we know your expectations of yourself are very high. Forget whether you're in an ad or not. What do they expect from you race-wise? Are they giving you the time to do what you need to do to get where you need to be?
Oh, yeah. I think my sponsors and partners have always been great about that. They don't just sponsor me and put the name on the side of a car, and they go beyond that for sure, and they use, my platform and my reach with fans, and that's I always believe that's what makes the relationship really work. While they want me to do well, I want to do well, and that's my primary goal. The relationship has legs outside of that, and that's what I feel like makes them work really well, and why I've been fortunate to have sponsors stick around for a long time.
Mike.
Danica, we're all still trying to learn as much as we can about concussions and the way drivers deal with them and things of that nature. I know you dealt with baseline testing in IndyCar. Do you see a place for that here in NASCAR?
I guess in a simple word, yes. I don't think that additional precautions or testing or knowledge is a bad thing, I've been asked a lot about people sandbagging the test, and my answer is that first and foremost, my competitiveness comes out, and so I just had to do it as well as possible just because of my personality. But the other side of that is if you choose to sandbag and not perform as well on the original test so that you can do better later, it's your own fault. It's your life. If you choose to do that, you can, but it's only affecting you. So I thought baseline testing was a good thing, and I think a lot of sports do that. I know when I had a big accident at Homestead at my first IndyCar race in 2005, I was fortunate enough to have a weekend off between that one and the next race, which was Phoenix, and I took the baseline, I retested the baseline at ASU. So I think it's a good thing. Now, I don't think it's a lot of fun to have to take the time to do it. It takes a while, but it's about a 30-minute test. But knowing more about your mental status and health is always good.
Let's go to Lewis, Holly, and then finish up with Jenna, please.
Louis Frank, Reuters, and Speed Week. This is a question about crew chiefs. You've dealt with Tony Uri Jr., Ryan Pemberton, and I believe Greg Zipadelli over in the Cup side. They all have pretty different styles, I would imagine, so how do you shift gears, let's say, when you're getting information, moving from car to car, just day to day?
I think it's fine. I mean, I don't mind having different crew chiefs. I think the hard part is them understanding how to take what I'm saying and apply that to a car. Because when I say that the car is pushing 3 out of 5, that's not the same for me as someone else. So, that's the learning process, and that's the tough part. But I think if you can get in sync with one or with two or whatever, then I think you're fine.
Let's go to Holly, please.
Holly Kane, NASCAR.com. Danica, with preparing for full-time Cup season, do you feel like going into it now that you are good to go? Do you feel like you accomplished all the things that maybe you had in mind to feel better about going into next season? And if not, what do you feel like you need to work on a little bit more? And what has been the biggest benefit to you having run these Cup races before doing a full-time season?
Just getting over the hurdle of running at difficult tracks, running at unique places, and I think it's going to be helpful to have some sort of a baseline setup going to these places next year. But new places are always challenging for me. It was the same in Nationwide. I mean, I get frustrated when I think about how I'm doing out there in Cup sometimes in practice. But then I remember back to Nationwide, and I remember that it didn't go so great there either. And you end up figuring out how to drive the car and how to get it to the limit and feel that out and be able to believe in that. And I just am not quite there. And so each time I get to a new track, it's always the same. It's just I got to build up my confidence. And I'm not the kind of driver that goes out there and goes past it to figure out where it is. I build up to it. And another thing I'm not very good at doing early on is I don't take a car that's not right and make it decent. I don't know how. I just don't have the confidence to do that yet. So when they make a change that's right, all of a sudden a bunch of time comes off, and that's just and the fact that I'm methodical. I mean, those are. I was just talking to the team the other day about that. Those are definitely just characteristics of mine that aren't great, but they're also not horrible. I mean, being methodical is also what helps me be able to repeat it time and time again. So, I know that the team's been really encouraged in the races where, a lot of times through the middle or end of the race, my pace is really good and they're really happy with it. And so that's the kind of stuff that we need to focus on and keep in mind, and hopefully that will improve. And I know that in Nationwide, when I finally kind of figured out how to drive the 1.5 miles at least, it helped on all of them. So I just have to figure out those characteristics of the car and how to wrap my head around it.
Jenna, we'll finish up with you.
Danica, Tony has said many times this year, when he set your Cup schedule, he picked really hard tracks for you and really grueling schedule. And he said that you'll thank him next year. Now that it's almost over, do you ever see yourself thanking him for what he's put you through?
I think the fact that I'm going to get to drive at his team is enough thank you for all of it. And what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? So I actually have had a lot of fun at some of the more challenging tracks. I really enjoyed Darlington. I really enjoyed Bristol, and there have been some tracks that I didn't expect to like. So there are times that I go to a place like for the Coke 600 at Charlotte, and I thought I could do better there, and I personally thought I sucked. So I think I surprise myself sometimes of what I catch on to and what I don't, but I'm sure it will help. And just knocking 10 tracks off the list is, I think, maybe one of the biggest things. All of them? I mean, yeah, they're all tough. I mean, I feel like the toughest thing for me is that I'm just so slow in practice. The guys are so fast, and I feel like in the race when everything kind of evens out and there's not new tires anymore, and all there is the beginning of a run, which I still struggle with. Once everything kind of settles in, I'm better, and I fix my car more throughout the race, and there's a lot more time to do it in a cup race, and by the end I feel pretty good. So but practice is fast and furious, so I just have to keep getting better.